In Hinduism and Buddhism, karma is a religious concept that refers to the cause and effect between people's actions and consequences. It is often thought to perpetuate transmigration and determine the nature of a person's next existence. When a bird is alive, it eats ants. When the bird is dead, ants eat the bird. Time and circumstances can change at any time. Don't devalue or hurt anyone in life. You may be powerful today, but remember, time is more powerful than you. One tree makes 1,000,000 matchsticks. Only one matchstick is needed to burn 1,000,000 trees. So be good and do good. I do believe in karma. I do believe that what you put out into the world, you will get back. And I believe an example of this was on February 2nd, 2012, in the Snake River Correctional Institution. Michael C. Hagen, in on a violent robbery of a female store clerk who he had beaten and stomped and pistol whipped, was then beaten and stomped himself 2 hours after he had checked into a new cell block inside of Snake River Correctional Institution by white supremacist gangs belonging to the Aryan Brotherhood. His widow, Tiffany Hagen, then proceeded to sue the Oregon Department of Corrections for negligence. However, I do believe Michael was mistreated, but I also believe that the Aryan Brotherhood and its members killed an individual who had karma coming his way.
We're here because Frank Gable murdered Michael Frank.
He collapsed and died before getting anyone's attention.
It's a travesty of justice, and the state of Oregon has fought to keep him in jail.
Did you see Frank Gable stab Michael Franke?
No.
Relatively few carjackings turn into murders.
There's a killer out there somewhere. Don't let me get railroaded for this. That's all I want.
Neil Goldschmidt has taken office as the governor of Oregon and appoints Michael Franke to oversee the state's troubled Department of Corrections. State lawmakers want answers about spending and corruption within the prison system. And Michael Franke gets stabbed to death outside his office at the Dome building.
It's been a nagging question since the murder of prison chief Michael Franke January 17th. Did he uncover corruption, and was that the reason he was stabbed outside of his office? It's a question that this man has been given the power to answer. He is 66-year-old John Warden, a former Court of Appeals judge and a one-time deputy district attorney. And now he's been appointed by the governor to look into the connection between possible corruption in the prison system and the death of Michael Franke. He admits he's never taken on an investigation of this scope before, but he says as a former judge, he knows how to separate truth from rumor. It's those rumors that Governor Neil Goldschmidt said today helped lead to his creation of the independent investigation. He says he hopes the informants that may have been reluctant to come forward in the past do so now.
There is a grand jury sitting. There is a special investigator that will have an office open very soon and an ability to be contacted in confidentiality. If I can be a little bit blunt about it, it's put up or shut up time. If folks have this information, they finally, I think, are in a position not to be complaining that there's no place to deliver it, that leaves them personally secure, and that they have some assurance that it'll be investigated independently.
And why did Goldschmidt wait until now to name such an investigator?
What kept me from doing it sooner was the hope that we could do something without overlapping in any manner or affecting in any manner the investigation being conducted into Michael Franke's death.
While he only learned of his appointment late yesterday, the special investigator lost no time getting down to business this afternoon. After a 30-minute meeting with the head of the state police, Warden emerged with the files from a probe into prison drugs and wrongdoing in 1986. While the head of the state police is convinced the probe cleaned house, Warden wants to start by looking at the findings of the last investigation.
A lot of my career has been in deciding as a judge whether there is sufficient evidence to believe that a certain crime has been committed and that a certain person committed it to justify holding that person. Those are the kind of standards I'm used to.
While a main thrust of the investigation, according to the governor, is to dispel rumors, Warden says he feels confident if there is corruption, he'll find it.
My job is to give this an independent look, completely independent, and exercise my independent judgment.
Warden will get money from the Legislative E-Board to hire investigators. He says they may be former FBI agents. Meanwhile, Senator Jim Hill said today that while the investigation was a step in the right direction, it wouldn't deter him from pursuing a legislative probe. He said that the public still has a right to know what's going on. Eric Mason, Newsroom 6, Willamette Valley Bureau. The report shows no link between the murder of Michael Franke and any kind of wrongdoing in the Department of Corrections. But surprisingly, it points to lawlessness on behalf of officials in top security positions, some that go even as far as the Dome building. The report says as many as 15 prison officials may be involved. Those names were not released. However, a long list of alleged activities were. They include planting contraband to entrap inmates, drugs and alcohol provided to inmates as favors, nepotism and cronyism, senior officials taking inmate funds, double billing, promotions based on outcomes of poker games, and harassment of employees who report wrongdoing. After 3 months of investigating, the man that Governor Goldschmidt appointed elaborated on the charges.
Surprised? I'm not sure that I was surprised. I was troubled by it, particularly within some of the institutions. The almost siege mentality that they had in some of them, where if there was something that didn't look quite right, the aim was to get it covered up.
The names will be handed to Fred Peirce, the head of the Department of Corrections. He says if there's enough evidence for criminal prosecution, he'll turn it over to the district attorney. The specter of wrongdoing seemed to sober Neil Goldschmidt, who 3 months ago said he was tired of endless rumors regarding corruption in the prison system and those who were afraid of coming forward.
If I can be a little bit blunt about it, it's put up or shut up time. If folks have this information, they finally, I think, are in a position not to be complaining that there's no place to deliver it.
Today, Goldschmidt acknowledged the fear factor of employees who want to report wrongdoing.
I do recognize, after talking to the judge and visiting with some state legislators, that there are individuals who continue to be frustrated about the circumstances in which they find themselves, which is mostly that they've always feared reprisal for saying anything.
Prison Chief Fred Peirce also learned a valuable lesson in the past 3 months.
You know, I think Judge Warden's work has in fact facilitated that. In fact, some have begun coming to me for the first time in the last 60 to 90 days, which didn't occur in the first 6 months I was here.
However, the judge did not find evidence to support a link from the wrongdoing to the murder of Prison Chief Michael Franke. But Franke's brother, Kevin, told us from Florida today there's no way to be sure if there's a link until someone has been convicted in the murder.
I'm encouraged that Governor Goldschmidt has come around 180 degrees from just a few months ago, from where he was asking where does all this BS come from, that it's now abundantly clear that all this BS was certainly right in front of him, and all he needed to do was pick up his shoe to find out what he'd stolen.
A man who studies white supremacist groups says they have become emboldened to go public with their views.
And in Oregon, their history goes back to when the state was first formed. It was partially why we've seen clashes at local protests between anarchists and these white nationalists. Our Nina Melhoff talked with one of those experts who says Charlottesville and our local violence all stems from change. Nina?
Yeah, Chris, sociology professor Randy Blazak says it's the fear that white men are losing their power that founded this country. They see America changing too fast with gay marriage, transgender bathrooms, and immigrants. And it's their last chance to regain control while they feel they have a friend in the president.
And they've been existing online for the last 8 or 10 years, and now they're kind of feeling emboldened enough to come out on the streets.
Professor Randy Blazak has been busy on CNN Saturday talking about Charlottesville and to us today on how Oregon fits into this national trend.
Well, Oregon has a long history. I mean, it was founded as a white-only state in 1859. We had the exclusion laws that existed through the 20th century. We've had hate groups here. The Klan ran Oregon, including the governor's office in the 1920s. I mean, it's a part of our history, and it helps explain why Portland and Oregon in general is so white.
Blazak says white nationalist is just a new name for white supremacist. They want to keep America in white power, and he sees their movement growing.
As they make their case and as they have more confrontations with people who they perceive as their enemies, including when they're beaten up by people, and that adds to their story that they're the victims of history, they're going to pick up more followers.
And Patriot Prayer have always preached peace and have always preached love 100% of the time.
Joey Gibson's group Patriot Prayer has been picking up followers too. The 33-year-old Vancouver real estate investor started out organizing protests pro-Trump rallies in 2016 and has now morphed into what he calls a moderate libertarian.
I'm trying to encourage people to stand up for what they believe in, whatever it is.
But Patriot Prayer has been criticized for attracting known white supremacists to Portland who fight anti-fascists on the other extreme. A minority himself, Gibson says he doesn't support either group.
I'm just against identity politics. I want to bring together everyone, and I don't want to focus on race. I don't want to focus on that, and we don't need the extremists on both sides. You know, we don't need Antifa, we don't need all those communists, we don't need, you know, the extreme hardcore right, we don't need that, you know. The moderates are the ones that run this country, that build our culture, and to team up to either side is going to be a huge problem because the extremists are always trying to divide us.
Patriot Prayer will be hosting a Freedom March September 10th in downtown Portland. Joey Gibson says it's in line with the anniversary of September 11th and will be a somber gathering to promote peace and a healthy dialogue.
What's going on, you guys? Welcome back. Another episode of Greenlit Gang TV. Much love, much appreciation. Sorry it took me a couple days to get this video out. I was with some family, you know, holidays. I did get that one up on Christmas. If you want, feel free and go check that one out. But really quick, I hope you guys had a good time with your family. For those of you that are locked up in a treatment facility, a detox facility, or just going through it, if you're on the streets, my heart, my prayers, everything is with you this time of year. It is rough. And don't forget, you are worth it. Get the help you need and deserve. So we're going to be going, crazy story. We're going to be going to the state of Oregon with this one. We're going to be covering a couple different layers. We're going to be covering the Aryan Brotherhood. We're going to be covering the long-running systemic issue of corruption in the state of Oregon within their prison system. We're going to be talking about a case involving a man who was murdered in prison by an Aryan Brotherhood member, even though he was for a year, 2 years, basically about a year before he was killed, begging the administrators, anybody that would listen, his wife at the time, anybody that would listen, my life is in danger. You're going to get me killed if you do not transfer me prisons now. Even when, remember, this is a white guy, not a non-gang member white guy, okay? He even asked Crips and Bloods members, who he was somewhat cool with, for protection. And we're going to get into that as well. But if you remember my intro from a few minutes ago, it was about karma. We're going to be talking about this guy's case and what got him in prison. And, you know, did he in the end maybe get what he deserved? And, you know, sometimes it's like, you know what? Violence doesn't solve anything. But I will say karma is something I believe in. You get out what you put into this world. If you are giving out negative energy, if you're giving out violent energy, if you are giving out, you don't care about hurting others, I believe you will get that back eventually, and you will get what you got coming to you. And I'm a firm believer in what's done in the dark will be brought to the light. Comment down below. Let me know what you think of karma. If you think, you know what, it's BS. Life is just life. There is no karma. There is no anything. It's just dumb luck. It's just things happen. Things don't happen. It is what it is. You know, I want to know what you guys think. So we're going to be going, like I said, to the state of Oregon. All right. We're going to be going back to about 2012. And, yeah, basically the state of Oregon has had a long-running issue, like a lot of states, with corruption, violence, attacks on guards, attacks on inmates. But this one really stuck out because on February 2nd, 2012, a guy by the name, Michael C. Hagen, 28 years old at the time of his death, he had been transferred to Snake River Correctional Institution in July of 2010. Now, in this particular prison, inmate-on-inmate violence was prevalent, okay? According to federal court filings, all right? Michael C. Hagen, he had never been incarcerated before. And you can see with this picture, he's kind of just a chunky white guy, no tattoos that you can visibly see. But this is the interesting thing, okay? So he gets in there. He's trying to stay out of trouble. He's trying to avoid conflict. And he refuses to fight even when provoked. right when I read that, I knew this is not good. This is not good. That is a major test. If somebody tests you in prison, and any of you that have done a lot of time, even if you've done just done county jail time, if you are viewed as weak, if you are viewed as somebody who can be tried, if you are viewed as somebody who can be got, they are wolves and they will attack you. You are a sheep, they are wolves and they will attack you. There is no, okay? In Oregon, people don't really realize this, but I was reading through it. There are serious gang sets. There are a large Hispanic gang sets, large African-American gang sets, and absolutely an Aryan Brotherhood, a white supremacist. There is all of these wrapped up in these institutions, okay? And like we said, in this Snake River Correctional Institution, inmate-on-inmate violence is very prevalent, all right? So, he's trying to avoid conflict. He's trying to go in, put his head down, do his time. He repeatedly requested a transfer to another facility because of fear of being violently attacked by another inmate, including an inmate of the white prison gang, the Aryan Brotherhood, okay? But prison officials had ignored his pleas. Now, this is from a federal lawsuit that was filed by Hagen's wife at the time. Hagen's problems began when members of the Aryan Brotherhood, a white supremacist gang, discovered that he was a talented tattoo artist. Actually, I shouldn't say that. He said he was a talented artist, okay? Because when you see his picture, and I can't speak to the rest of his body, but just like when you see his face, there's no tattoos there, and he gives off the vibe that he probably doesn't have any ink, okay? Maybe he does a little bit, but and that's what I want to make sure, because when you read it, you go, oh, tattoo artist. No, he's a talented artist, okay? He can draw, he can do things, but, hey, man, you don't always have the best options when it comes to somebody that might be able to tattoo you. These guys are doing a lot of time. Tattoos are obviously a huge part of the Aryan Brotherhood and other prison gangs and gangs in general, or just street guys in general. I'm not a street guy, but you hang around it, you're kind of in that life. I love tattoos. I'm covered. So anyway, they find out that he's a very good artist. The guy can draw at minimum. I'm sure he can tattoo, okay? Fearing that he would lose his good time and he had a wonderful job as a tutor, Hagen basically says, nope, I'm not. It says refused to join the gang. It's like they probably didn't ask him to join the gang. Okay, that's just a typo. But he also refused to tattoo members. In particular, a member by the name of Terry Lapich and then a couple other prisoners. Now, Terry Lapich was a very high violent offender, multiple time felon, and a guy that you do not say no to in certain situations, all right? In early 2011, so remember, he gets transferred to Snake River Correctional Institution in July of 2010. Now, we're going to talk about what he did to get there in just a few minutes. In early 2011, though, so after he says no, in early 2011, a group of at least 8 white supremacist gang members targeted Hagen for retaliation for refusing to serve as the gang's tattoo artist, and they claimed he was a snitch. According to a subsequent federal lawsuit, as a result, Hagen was assaulted by his cellmates seriously enough to be hospitalized on one occasion. And it's just like, you just know, man. You just know. It's already crappy to be in there. And man, dude, your time is going to be so hard. Your time is going to just be so hard. I will be honest. Just do the tattoos. Why not? You're white. If it gets you preferential, they're not asking you to go stab somebody. They're not asking you to go kill somebody. Just do the tattoos, man. Who gives a what about a job as a tutor? You don't even know for sure if you will lose it. I just don't get it. I just don't get why he said no. So anyway, they retaliate. One occasion from the beat downs, he's hospitalized. Lapich and another prisoner retaliated again by having 2 other prisoners beat Hagen for his refusal. And this was kind of been talking about by a guy named Dennis Steinman. He's the lawyer who represents Hagen's then widow. When Lapich and other prisoners were disciplined, Hagen was labeled as a snitch. As a result, he was repeatedly assaulted again. Okay, so these beatings just continue. Hagen repeatedly requested a transfer to another prison, quote, because of his fear of being violently attacked. And this is all kind of named in this federal lawsuit. And again, prison officials begin to ignore his pleas. Learning of the snitch jacket, one of Hagen's cellmates, so he comes in, punched him right away, and told him to get out. Basically, roll out, hit that button, get out of here, homie. Because this is what people have to understand. Just being in his presence, just associating with him and being, quote, cool with him can get you the same treatment or get you labeled a snitch as well. So that cellmate, and this is what sometimes people really don't understand. He doesn't have a choice. The minute Hagen gets in the cell with him, it is expected that he takes off on that fool. That's expected of him, all right? When Hagen told guards that he feared for his safety and needed to get away from the cellmate that punched him, they told him to return to the cell or go to seg, which is disciplinary segregation. He chose to go to segregation, which is like a form of solitary confinement. Soon after his return to general population, though, Hagen gets threatened again by a group of prisoners. When he alerts guards, this is crazy, he gets moved to a cell with another white supremacist who warned Hagen as he entered the cell, quote, "We're going to have a problem." Hagen repeatedly wrote notes to corrections officials known in prison lingo as kites. This is where you can type on the kiosk. I'm not sure if he's doing handwritten notes. County jail I did time in. You can get on there. They call it debriefing, right? You can get on there, write a kite, an anonymous kite. Guys know when you're telling on them. Things that I remember when I was in there for the 6 months. Guys knew. There was a couple guys that would come in, things would happen to them, and they book it down. They're not even good at hiding it. And you can tell because, at least in the county jail I was in, kiosks are right down front below the TVs where everybody's hanging out. It's not a whole lot of privacy. You're typing away. They know what you're doing. It's bad. It's really, really bad. All right. So puts these kites out. Hagen continues to write notes to corrections officials known in prison as kites. 10 months into his prison term, Hagen's cellmate, identified in court papers as James DeFrank, was accused of, who had priorly, and his story is really interesting. I didn't get into it too much because we got to focus on this, but I did a little research on him. I got a picture of him. Was accused of murdering another inmate on a prison yard. He's an older guy. He basically, so I want you to think about that. He's writing all these kites. He's getting attacked. And Hagen ends up getting put in a cell with this guy who was accused of killing a cellmate. All right. And James DeFrank takes off on Hagen then. Okay. James DeFrank, interestingly enough, just a quick sidebar when I was researching him, he'd gotten basically accused and convicted of murdering a cellmate. Well, he had a lawyer that was able to get him off, which is just a really crazy case. But yeah, this is who now Hagen is fully ensnared with. Fully down in the gutter with. He's a snitch. He's a refusal to tattoo, one of the most violent, vicious prison gangs known to man in the Aryan Brotherhood. Things are going from bad to worse to deadly. So, on October 6, 2011, according to the lawsuit, prison authorities housed Hagen with Cheyenne Evans, also a suspected white supremacist, who continued to keep up what the other white supremacists, the other Aryan Brotherhood member said, and says, "Hey, we're going to have a problem, man." Later that day, Mr. Hagen instigated, now this is crazy. This is how desperate Hagen got, okay? Later that day, to try to get out of being a cellmate with him, he instigates a fight with Evans in the day room. Mr. Hagen charged at Evans, but Evans threw him to the ground and punched Mr. Hagen and then stomped on him with his boots. Mr. Hagen was badly hurt and had to be taken to an outside hospital. Hagen told a disciplinary hearing officer that he feared for his life and believed fighting the prisoner was his only way out of the cell. And what he was trying to do is what they gave him. He got 120 days in ADSEG. So that gives you... These are stories that you hear about in prison that a lot of us, and me included, sometimes you go, "Oh man, it's not that bad, act right," but no, literally he's going through this where he has to attack a guy just to be put in segregation. I mean, it's pick of two horrible options, right? I mean, it's brutal, man. It's brutal in there. While in segregation, Hagen learns that the prisoner he fought wanted him dead. He wrote his counselor requesting to stay in segregation because, quote, he was so afraid that he would be attacked again. Prison officials finally agree that Hagen faced a legitimate threat and told him, quote, that he would be transferred to a different prison when he had done his time in the hole. So now he's sitting there, he's doing his 120 days, It's coming towards the end of the year, 2011. So according to the federal lawsuit, intelligence officer Mike Foley called Seg staff to alert them that Hagen was being transferred in order that he, quote, not be released from segregation. For the next few months, corrections officers and other prison officials looked into Hagen's complaints that white supremacists were threatening his life. They continue to agree on what he's saying. Up and down the chain of command gets on the same page. And yes, this is going to happen. We're going to get him transferred, all right? Quote, that he would be transferred to a different prison when he had done his time in the hole. According to the federal lawsuit, intelligence officer Mike Foley continues to harp on he is not to be put in Gen Pop. He's going to do his time in AdSeg. We're going to get him to another prison. And even we know this because Hagen, he starts writing letters to his wife. Hey, guess what? I survived. I'm going to be moved. And we're going to do this, man. I'm going to make it out. He submitted detailed inmate conflict reports against Lapich. Remember that name, Lapich. Evans, okay? Who the one that he had to charge in the day room and he got beat up. And another suspected white supremacist by the name of Michael Hagen, saying he feared they were planning to kill him or have him killed when he got out of segregation. A prison intelligence officer, Mike Foley, phoned staffers in the disciplinary segregation unit and told them Hagen was going to be out. And again, under no circumstance. So Foley is... He's on, right? Foley is definitely on Hagen's side. We got to get this done right. We cannot have a body on our hands. We got to do it, okay? And again, under no circumstances, Gen Pop. Quote, everyone knew he could not be returned to the general population. His life was in danger. The complaint alleges that the prison personnel, check this out, okay? Let Lapich, Hagen, and Evans know that Hagen had informed on their conspiracy to murder him. Okay, and had requested a transfer. So yes, prison personnel tell these violent Aryan Brotherhood white supremacist gang members basically what's going on. They tell them, hey, guess what? Your boy that don't do the tattoos you guys have been beating up on for the last few months, well, he's in AdSeg. He's going to get a transfer, and he's spilling the beans. He's telling everybody everything on your ass. It's like, that's a death sentence, man. And that's where... it's not about Hagen. I don't care about Hagen. We're going to talk about his crime. I don't care. But this is what happens to people all over the country with our messed up correction system and these privatized prisons and these state-ran facilities. They're crap. They're junk. If any of you have done time, you know these guys are slimy, dude. A lot of these corrections officers are slimy. There's a lot of good ones. Don't get me wrong. So anybody reading this or listening to this, listening to this, there are a ton of good ones, but it's like that old saying. It just takes a couple bad apples and you spoil the bunch, man. So reading that is like, dude, if any of you guys, for people that are so naive to think that this stuff doesn't happen, it does. And it happens every single day. And look, it happened to a white guy, just a normal white dude, had never done time, wasn't giving prison staff any issues. Didn't matter. Did not matter. Okay? So it takes us to February 2nd, 2012. Hagen gets taken out of the hole, and right away he gets put in harm's way. An officer identified in the lawsuit as John Gillum was responsible for inmate assignments and ensuring that prisoners weren't placed in cells with inmates with whom they'd had reported conflict. The suit alleges Gillum was told about conflicts between Hagen and the prison's white supremacists, including Lapich, Hagen, and Evans, but returns Hagen to Gen Pop anyway. Further, the lawsuit alleges Officer Gillum, this is crazy, assigns Hagen to share a cell with none other than inmate Lapich, one of the people who had threatened his life. At 8:25 a.m. that day, Hagen arrived in his new cell block. When he learned his cellmate was Lapich, he freaked out. He complains to Officer Donald Harris that he and Lapich had a conflict, but Harris allegedly ordered Hagen report to his new cell. Shut up, go. So regardless of orders, guards John Gillum and Donald Harris then ordered the terrified Hagen. I want you to picture this. Just picture this. You have been told you're not going back to Gen Pop. You've been told you're going to go from here. We're going to transfer you. So he was telling before, he's writing all these conflict reports, all these kites. He's giving names. He's like, they did this. Oh, and by the way, this. They come and get you. You're thinking you're going, and you get put in a cell with one of the Aryan Brotherhood members, white supremacist gang members, one of the most violent guys. You're put in a cell with him, and the door's locked. I mean, that, ooh, dude, that almost gives you chills, okay? So regardless of orders, They put him in the cell. Hagen's 28, Lapich's 32. Shortly after Mr. Hagen entered the cell, audible screams come from inside the cell. According to the suit, Officer Harris heard the screams, did not take any action. Prison officials deny that Harris heard screaming. 2 hours later, at exactly 10:05 a.m., Lapich hit an emergency bell, claiming that Hagen had fallen out of his bed. Guards found Hagen unconscious in a pool of his own blood with boot prints on his head. He was transported to a local hospital where he died the next day. Tiffany Hagen, his wife, sues the Oregon Department of Corrections for negligence for failing to protect her husband and not training employees. She was sued for $7.5 million. Dude, I mean, that is insane, all right? That's crazy. Lapich was serving a long prison term for robbery, theft, burglary, and auto theft at the time of Hagen's death. He was later charged in Malheur County for Hagen's murder. Michael Hagen was the second of 3 prisoners at Snake River Correctional Institution killed by other inmates since 2008. So he's killed in 12 in 2008. That was the third one in 2008. Okay? So 4 years, 3 guys get murdered. So people don't always think about Oregon. That's why I try to want to do this story, change it up a little bit, you know? I mean, the state of Oregon, this stuff goes down, guys. So, in the midst of all this happening to Hagen, all right, the lawyer, Steinman, he does an interview Friday that Hagen was so desperate for help that he reached out to a leader of the African-American gangs who had liked him, who, like him, had served time in the hole, okay? So 8 days after Hagen's murder, an unnamed African-American gang leader wrote Steinman, the lawyer, apologizing for not protecting Hagen and offering to be a witness against the guards, prison officials. He goes on to say, quote, "I know he was very scared for his life and wanted to do good for his family," the prisoner wrote. "I couldn't protect Mr. Hagen because the rules inmates have in prison are effed up." Quote, "In Oregon prison, black people only protect black people and white people only protect white people. Mexicans only protect Mexican people." He explained, quote, "I feel very bad for not protecting Mr. Hagen, but I couldn't." That's insane, dude. That is absolutely insane. A couple other inmate deaths over the years. June 28, 2013, inmate Jason Gold is beat to death in his cell at Snake River Correctional Institution by a guy named Thomas E. Reifenberg. May 21st, 2011, inmate Chris Lang is beat in the recreation yard at Snake River Correctional Institution and dies June 8th. The suspect is inmate James S. DeFrank. Remember, DeFrank was one of the cellmates of Hagen who punched him. Back in 2008, inmate James Briggs is strangled to death in his cell at Snake River Correctional Institution. Inmate John F. Steele is convicted. In February of 2008, inmate Antonio Berlantes Vasquez is beat to death in his cell by an inmate named Isaac Agee and James Davenport. These are all white boys, man. These are all white boys doing this, and that is just insane, dude. These white supremacist gangs, they are out there, guys. Hispanics run deep, African Americans run deep, but then white boy gangs, man, they do not play either. So, really quick. Oh, I'm going to read this. So, they do an article back in 2016. So, 4 years after the murder, after reviewing a trove of reports detailing Oregon correctional officer discipline from 2010 to 2015, they do like a long-term investigation. A picture emerges of a prison system short in officer oversight and fraught with complacency. The reports were released to the Statesman Journal after months-long public records battle with the Oregon Department of Corrections, which operates 14 state prisons, housing almost 15,000 inmates. This is back in 2016. So by now, you know, that number's way up there. After release, each misconduct report was examined line by line and assembled into a searchable online database. And basically came out, I listed the names of some other murders that had occurred, but they went on to say security protocols neglected, resulting in unnoticed escape attempts, assaults between inmates, corrections officers were watching pornography or sleeping while on duty, assaults and insubordination committed by COs, punished with varying severity, racial slurs, homophobic comments directed at inmates, which, I'll be honest, man, some of this stuff happens, right? Sexual harassment of male and female corrections employees. Some of this stuff happens, you know, and you can't, you know, you call me a name, I call you a name, that kind of stuff happens. You got inmates interacting with guards. That, I'm not saying anything. But that story about Hagen, man, that's murder. That's murder. You put him in a cell with a guy that you knew wanted to kill him. That is murder. I don't, you know, whatever. But to end this, okay, we're going to be talking about Hagen, karma, and what he did to get there. Okay? And I want to know what you guys think. So, back on July 8, 2009, a 25-year-old Michael Hagen, excuse me, is at a young lady's named Nicole Lowntree's business. Pulls up at 8:15 a.m. He cuts the phone lines. And around 10 a.m.-ish, calls come in that a woman had been attacked with a metal baton. Came out in court that Michael Hagen, who had actually, like I said, no prior criminal record, he was a Comcast employee for like 5 years, all right? He bounds her, he gags her, this is Michael Hagen did in Nicole Laundrie, and beat her with a baton, cracking her skull and shattering her nose, all right? He nearly bludgeons her to death. She's a cash store clerk, and this happened in Southeast Portland. Basically, his lawyer tries to say, oh, he snapped, he never been in trouble, and he blamed it on his landlord had told him he was about to be evicted, all right? So attack happens when he's 25. By the time he goes to court, he's 26. Otherwise, law-abiding citizen. He was a loving father. Yeah. Basically, it happened at a place called Ace Checks Cash Store, and this is at Southeast 73rd Ave and Pole Boulevard. And he was actually on duty. He was working on Comcast, wearing his Comcast vest and driving a company van. And he made off with $3,000. And it's just insane. He gets charged with attempted murder, among other crimes. Investigator testified that Nicole Laundrie suffered at least 7 blows to the head with that collapsible baton, and he had covered her mouth with duct tape and bound her hands. Quote, there's so much blood coming down her face that the duct tape comes off. And he stops. He only stops when Nicole Laundrie played dead. So, karma. I'll be honest. I read that article, and I go, Hagen, I don't want to say it. Got a little bit of what you deserve, my friend. You nearly beat a woman to death, and you only stopped because she acted like she was dead. Otherwise, you would have killed her. And, yeah. And I get comments all the time. I've had family members reach out. You don't know the whole story. You don't know. Yes, I do. I don't need to know every single detail to know that he walked into her place, robbed her, beat her within an inch of her life, got to prison, refused to tattoo the wrong people, got beat up, and guess what? You got beaten to death, just like you did to Nicole Laundrie. So, I want to know what you guys think down below. Did he get what he had coming, or does an eye for an eye not work in our society? I think in this case, I don't know. I don't have any sympathy for the fact that Hagen's no longer on this earth. But anyway, much love, much appreciation. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm going to get another one going. I got to go to work. Hope y'all have a wonderful day. Happy New Year. Until next time, you already know what it is. Peace!